Hello, everyone. My name is Matthew Bateman, and today I'll be presenting to you the topic of human trafficking and trying to build more awareness around the topic. So let's just start with the introduction of who we are and why we're doing this. So the group that you see on this slide is Abigail, Isabel, myself, and Cameron. And we're in a group together for our social innovation class. And for this semester, we were tasked to focus on a social issue and then create a tangible idea to address that problem. So the topic that we chose was human trafficking, and the problem that we decided to address was just a general lack of awareness. In our research, we were all shocked and kind of disturbed to find out that the average age of a human trafficking victim in the US is 12 years old. So we're speaking to you guys today as the future educators of our world in hopes that you can take something away from this and that it'll evidently help combat this issue. And also, I want to emphasize that we're not experts. We're not trained formally or educated on this topic, but what we felt as a group that we could contribute and provide for you guys is a concise presentation on a reputable source such as the U.S. government's National Public Awareness Campaign against human trafficking, which is called the Blue Campaign. So today, what we'll be going over is an abridged version of the Blue Campaign's guide for how to talk about trafficking for individuals who are working with youth, such as like you guys. So I'll provide the full guide at the end of the presentation, and I would highly encourage everyone to download it for themselves, take a deeper dive into this issue. So the topics of this presentation and what we're going to be going over are what is human trafficking, going over a general definition, risk factors among youth, tips that we can use for talking to youth, and information about life skills that may prevent youth from being trafficked. So what is human trafficking? Human trafficking involves the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some type of labor or commercial sex act. And causing someone under the age of 18 to engage in a commercial sex act, regardless of use of force, fraud, or coercion, is human trafficking under US law. So the crime of human trafficking hinges on the exploitation of another person. People often falsely believe that human trafficking, based on the verbiage, implies that victims must be moved from one place to another to qualify as a victim. That's actually not true. Human trafficking does not require transportation to be considered a crime. It is a crime that can be committed against an individual who has never even left their hometown. So, in many cases, victims don't even come forward to seek help because they might be vulnerable. There could be potential language barriers. They might fear law enforcement, or they don't even identify as a victim because they might not even know that it's happening to them, or they might not even know that it's wrong. So, to help, understand this problem, understanding certain risk factors can also help us when we're working with youth to prevent them from being exploited or even trafficked. Youth often experience individual and environmental risk factors that make them more vulnerable to human trafficking situations. So, keeping the following risk factors in mind will help to provide you a better understanding of human trafficking victimization. So, some risk factors are poverty, homelessness, interaction with foster care or juvenile justice systems, lack of support networks such as friends, family, or other trusted adults, and even gang involvement. Now we'll move on to some tips for talking to youth, and we'll go over some do's and don'ts. There's something you do want to do is talk about protective factors. Conversations should focus on how youth can protect themselves and look out for their friends and peers. What you don't want to do is talk about risk factors. Uh, this might make the youth feel singled out. It can make them feel vulnerable or even unable to protect themselves. A lot of the times, these kids they might not even have control over the risk factors that they're affected by. You do want to use empowering language. You want to use language that focuses on highlighting the strengths of the youth that you work with and emphasizes that they're in control of their own decisions, especially when they're presented with opportunities that might seem too good to be true. You don't want to use language that invokes fear and that might highlight the weaknesses that might discourage youth from taking any protective action. You do want to express that you're concerned and that you want to listen. If someone shares information with you about an exploitative situation that they might be experiencing, I'm going to start by listening to them and letting them know that you care about what they're going through. You don't want to question that situation that they're in. At this point, you want to let professionals who are trained in trauma response to ask specific questions about their situation. Asking too many questions initially that could inadvertently place some sort of blame on them, and that might make them less receptive to help. And then we'll move on to building life skills. So youth who do not have examples of healthy relationships in their lives, they might be more vulnerable to human trafficking. Their understanding of what a relationship should look like, might be distorted by some of the relationships that they've seen in their lives and that they see among their peers. So when interacting with youth, it's important to challenge these ideas and emphasize what a healthy relationship can look like. So some characteristics of a healthy relationship that should be emphasized with youth are things like open communication. Like you should never really be scared to talk to your partner about something. You should always have respect for privacy. You don't need to be with your partner 24/7. They don't need access or control over all your personal belongings like your phone or money. And then, last but not least is that violence is never okay. Your partner should never put their hands on you with the intent to physically harm you, and you shouldn't feel unsafe when being around them. And to conclude, we'll just go over some ways to report. So obviously, if anyone is in any immediate danger, you want to call 911 or local law enforcement. But in any other instance, you could follow your organization's reporting protocols. So hopefully, if you're obviously with James Madison or at any local elementary school or middle school that you might end up working at, hopefully you can just follow whatever protocols that they have in place if you have any suspicions about someone that might be involved in a human trafficking situation. You can also report any suspicious criminal activity directly to the Homeland Security investigation tip line. And, obviously, you shouldn't at any time attempt to confront a suspected trafficker directly. Your safety and that of, the people that we're working with is important. So instead, just please contact local child services or local law enforcement directly to get help. So thank you all for listening. Like I said before, I would encourage you all to download the guide for yourself to take a deeper dive into this problem. And hopefully, together, when we continue to educate ourselves, we can end trafficking. So thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.